Thanks for having me. I'm humbled.
Great to have you, man. So, yo, we want to jump right in. We want to learn about you, how you got here, what you do, what you did, and what's going down. So, take us right here. What is this piece?
So I showed that because my writing career, long before I ever did anything on a wall that was of any note, I was already kind of writing. And we were doing, that's me and my boy Jinx did that jacket. And we did T-shirts, we airbrushed, we did all kind of things. So I just kind of wanted to show that because it's like the only relic I have that shows that era. So this was probably like 87-ish, 88, anywhere in maybe even 86. I don't know. I met him in 85, 86 in high school. I knew him in junior high, but we were kind of rivals. We didn't like each other. But then in high school, we skipped school one day to ride the rail to go look at Graph, and we had mutual friends. So we kind of, from that day on, became cool. He's one of my best friends till this day. So
nice, man. So, I mean, you're from, what year did you get introduced to graffiti? How did you get to Miami?
So my first ever memory of graffiti is riding the train with my grandmother in New York. So I was born in the Bronx, but I lived in Washington Heights before I moved over here. So there was a station right there, and we used to get on the one line all the time. And I remember sitting with my grandma on the train, and these two kids walked in. In my mind, it's Min 1, but it was like this shorter white kid and this other black kid. And they're sitting there. When we walk in, we sit down, and as soon as the train starts to move, they get up and take like the craziest mop tag that I ever seen. And, the trains were bombed on the inside. It's crazy back then. This was, I want to say I was probably like 8 years old. I don't really remember, but somewhere around there, maybe 8 or 9. And I just remember my mind being just blown by the fact that you could even do that. The rebellion. My grandma immediately said some shit about them in Spanish, like, mira esto delincuente or something. So like just the shock of it all was like, wow. So from then on, I kind of paid attention to graffiti. I didn't really start writing till long after that, but that was like what set me off, just even paying attention to it. And then from that, my first marker I ever got, which was a Pilot, I wish I had it here, I have it at home, was one that my grandmother bought me. I don't remember exactly how long after that, but pretty soon after that, I saw a giant marker, and I was like, I gotta have that. So my grandma got me the first marker.
Yo, so for those of you that's just joining us, this is Brimstone rocking with ABOMB. We are representing Art Talk, talking about Miami history and graffiti history. You can show your support by picking up a badge, drop a comment, show us your love, man, and we're going to learn some deep things about this history here. So what can you tell us about this piece we got?
So this is one of the first pieces that I ever did with, and this was with my boy Jinx. So we had a crew called Dynamic Duo, as you can see there. I have like 50 crews that we had. ICA meant something else, I can't even remember. And at this point, he was writing Uno, I was writing Lego, and this is like right after that trip that we took on the rail where we started working. I see my boy Mouse out there, when we started like hanging out together. So this was at the warehouse. So actually, this was actually years later. So this was, and I'm sorry if my timelines are off. This was—
No, it's all good.
We started doing all the airbrush stuff, and this was, I believe, at the warehouse, and I believe this is, I think he's the one that told me about it because he moved around a lot, and I think he ended up living either near there or even in that in that trailer park that was right there, like just for a minute he lived in that area, and I believe that's how I found out. Or it could have been that we somehow saw it off the rail because I think it was slightly visible.
And so what area are you in? What area did you get started? And who was up before you were getting up here?
So I was living in Carol City. That's where
Carol
I met.
City, whoop, whoop.
Yep, Carol City in the house. And there was like a big, when I first moved there, like not immediately, I feel like a couple years later, there was a big B-boy movement there. There was like a breaking cool called MBC, BBC, the B-Boys Connection, which I got down kind of as a junior member because one of the leaders of it, this guy named Angel, was dating a girl in my neighborhood, and he would see me stealing, cardboards and cardboard outside and practicing. So that's almost where my graffiti career, once B-boying kind of got played, I feel like that's where I started writing like shit. Like I was the youngest, so my name was Shorty, or that's what everybody called me. So I started tagging Shorty, and that's where it almost wasn't graffiti to me. It was just writing my B-boy name, and that's how it kind of like jumped off for me.
what writers were active? Who was getting up in Carol City before you started bombing?
So there was a few of us, man. The first piece I ever saw in Carol City was these guys that wrote. One guy wrote Sign, S-I-N-E, and his partner was Mech, M-E-C-H, and they did a wall. I'm gonna say it was when I was in 7th grade, so it's gonna be 84, 85, and they did a wall that was a Sign and Mech piece, had characters, everything. Background, and they did it on the handball, but it lasted maybe a couple days, maybe a week. I don't remember, but it got buffed really quick. There wasn't much more. Most of the writing at that time was like inside the school, on school property. There was like 3 shopping centers nearby, behind and around the shopping centers. Other than that, it was like cow pastures, the projects. There wasn't much in Carol City, so I feel like we were on our own little island.
Wow.
So, but there was another kid that wrote Ski 157. There was my boy Jinx. There was Khan was in Carol City. I hadn't met him at this point, but his partner Rick that writes Kaiser, they're part of NSK. He was in high school with me. Bebop went to, if everybody remembers him, he bombed like crazy in like the late 80s, early 90s. He went to high school with me. I actually had him for a class for a minute. So there wasn't a lot of us. And a lot of them kind of retired when all the gang shit became what people were interested with or in. So that kind of everything graffiti related and hip hop related in Carol City, I feel like turned into just being a Carol City boy and being like gang shit. So
no doubt, no doubt, no doubt.
So this was a piece, I think this piece was out where at Sinner's Wall, if I'm not mistaken, that the Mile of Fame, as they call it. I think this would have been one of the first pieces on there. And you showed a previous one, if you go back a couple with me and Same, that was one of the first. Actually, no, this was a wall in Opalaka. I think later on I have another wall me and Same did on that Mile of Fame wall. So this was a wall. That other one you were just showing is a wall in Opalaka that we used to do every once in a while. It was off the tri-rail, so it was nice. There wasn't, at this point, many riders in Opalaka at all. I don't even know if there is today. Opalaka was pretty much just a giant drug hole. A lot of poverty there. But
I feel like, you know, the work that you guys started bringing, because I would see you up in the Hialeah pennant, and the style was definitely different than what traditional Miami graffiti looked like. And how would you say what you were doing was differing from what was going on during that time?
I think because of my connection to New York, and I used to get, like, anybody who knew me back then who was traveling to New York, you had to get me some pictures of graffiti and you had to record, you know, WBLS or Red Alert. Like, I needed that. So any friend, family that went out there, and I had cousins, I still do. I still have family in New York. So I always had a tie back to New York. And then I met, Jinx was originally from Jersey. My boy Zaire, who was my partner for a while, was from Long Island. He was a little bit later on. Same when I met him in '89, he was from Jersey. He had a bunch of pictures of trains and had like a New York style. So I feel like I always tied back everything hip hop to New York. Like it took me a while to grow to like even West Coast rap music, you know, even Miami stuff. Like I used to be a bit of a hater of the Bay stuff because I was just really that like raw New York hip hop was my thing. So
no doubt.
This was a wall. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
This was a wall on 27th Ave, like right off the Palmetto. There used to be, I think it was behind off the Palmetto. There used to be like this model car dealership. I don't know if you remember that. It was visible. Like you could see like these old looking cars, but I think there were models that you would build. And this was right behind that at this auto body shop. I can't even remember. I must have got permission because I remember painting it on broad daylight. It's a pretty ill neighborhood around there. So I think maybe there was tags and stuff on there. And I approached the owner of the auto body shop and they said I could paint it. So I did it. Ran for a while. And then I think it got this through one of the beefs.
No doubt. And so tell us a little bit about the crews that you've been a part of, who started them, who was down with them.
So yeah, initially I was in a number of crews. Like my first crew was with my cousin, who's a major mentor of mine, getting me started. Like he moved to Miami from Brooklyn a couple years after I did, and he was already kind of writing, like nothing significant, but we had a crew called TGA, the Ghetto Artists or the Graffiti Artists. And that was my first like legit crew. And I was more of a bomber at that point. All I cared about was tags and writing my name everywhere. I could barely draw at that point. you know, started practicing from then on. Once he's the one that introduced me to Subway Art. He had it when he moved, so I don't remember what year Subway Art came out, maybe 83, 84, but that's when I started like thinking about piecing. So I remember him showing me, and again, that's one of those times in my life where my mind was blown. Seeing all those trains kind of in one place just was like, even though I lived in New York and saw it, like seeing it all kind of in a book, I don't know, something about that was mind-blowing. So that got me started trying to write. And I remember going immediately, I started racking before I even started writing. My boy Ram, who was in HRT, wasn't really a writer, but he was just one of the people in my neighborhood. He taught me how to rack. So racking is a major part of my life. It kind of got me to where I am right now in a way, and we can talk about that later. But I immediately went to Dalton Books, either in Westland Mall or in 163rd Street Mall, and racked. Like, actually, we had to order it, I remember, and then I was planning on buying it, but when we got there, they had a bunch out, and I just racked it. So
you know, I feel like that is probably the most stolen book in the history of publications. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It must be.
I feel bad now because they probably would have made more money, you know, the photographers and stuff and the publisher, but you know, it is what it is. Those were the times. There was no way I could have afforded to buy it.
So talk to us a little bit about your process. Here we see your outline on top. You know, do you normally use graph paper that just happened to be this piece? And, you know,
that just happened to be whatever. Maybe I was at work or at home or something. That looks like something from work because it's graph paper. So I really I lost a black book. The first time I ever tried to paint, this is a good story. The first time I ever tried to do a wall was at there was a water treatment plant off 183rd and 37th Ave, and 7-Up had went there. They painted with Kahn and Kaiser. I think they were writing slightly different things, but my boy Rick that I went to junior high school with, and Kahn, and I saw their stuff there. You could see it off the street, or somehow I found out about it. So I went to go paint there. I went in my mom's Mustang, and I racked paint little by little, went there and got chased. First day, the helicopters came, they towed my mom's car, they took black books, paint, the cops took everything out of the car. I don't even know if the helicopter was for us, because, you know, Carroll City was kind of crazy back then. But we thought it was, we ran off, and maybe they took the car for other reasons, but they towed our car. We got the car back, but never any of the, you know, black books or anything like that. So from then on, I kind of gave up on black books. I feel like that kind of defeated me. So I would just do sketches like this. I have very, very few like paintings or drawings that are filled in from back then, like with marker thing. And part of that is I lost some stuff along the way, you know, life.
So there's some sucker cop out there that's rocking your black book and taking your outlines.
There is, for sure, man,
children,
somewhere in Opalaka.
Yeah, I mean, giving his children talk about, we got ABOMB's black book, children, come around.
Yeah.
The campfire, you know what I mean?
And that whole story, that was like 87, I want to say, whatever year 7-Up had painted those walls. It was like, when I saw that those guys were there, I was like, yo, I gotta do something to get even their attention, because since there were so few writers, I was like hungry to meet people, to know about other neighborhoods and stuff. So I got caught, and that put my career on hold, because I got that ass beat for like a couple years before I was like 14, before I got my own car and then could drive and really get around. So
word up. So we're rocking live with ABOMB, HRT, Hood's running things. Opalaka is definitely in the building. Actually, I want to go back to this real quick. So this looks like the Hialeah pen. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So what was your experience like at the pennant? And you know, who did you first go there with? Who did you run into? You started painting there a lot.
Yeah, I feel like the first person that took me there was Jinx, and I think he lived nearby. And I went there when that power piece by DK was fresh. I mean, barely a tag on the wall. The first time I went there, it was still clean, pretty pristine, but all the stuff that the AIM guys did, and DK, I forget whoever else was there.
Yeah,
all
actually, that day that the power, I was there that day. I did a BR there. It was me, Doze.
I remember that.
I can't remember who else was there, but you're right. The walls were freshly. There was nothing out there really.
Yeah, and I don't even think there was anything on the outside at that point. I think it was kind of all on the inside, from what I remember.
Okay.
So that was just like my spot, because from there, I was there all the time, because like I said.
Wait, we lost your volume. We lost your volume. 1 2 1 2. Nice.
You
Hold on,
there?
we lost you about 30 seconds ago. Would you mind just sharing that again?
Yeah, Hialeah Pennant was where I started to meet a lot of writers. So I was there all the time just because I was meeting people. I believe I met Edic there. If not, I might have met him at the Malibu, not the Malibu, at the airport Pennant. But I just started meeting people there. I met Dash the first time there. So I met Soul 4 there. Just it was cool to me like that because I was meeting all these other writers from other crews and other places. So it was kind of a way for me to connect with people. So I definitely painted there a bunch, hung out there a bunch. I was there all the time.
All right, all right. So what can you tell us about this piece? And it looks like, no disrespect to Atomic out there, but you were rocking the orange for a minute.
That's right, I was. But yeah, this was me and Same, and this was that for sure that Mile of Fame, and I believe this was the first time those walls ever got done. Permission. I'm sure there was tags and stuff before that, and maybe Sin had hit them, but this was all thanks to Sin. Somehow I met Sin, maybe at the warehouse, could be, or I might have met him even on that Ives Dairy Merry Christmas wall. I know I met a couple writers there, but this was the first time those walls ever got painted. So me and Same just tried to rock something, and Same's characters are beautiful, and I don't know what I was thinking with mine.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, man. So for those of you that are just joining us right now, you are rocking live with ABOMB, HRT, Old School Miami. Carol City is in the building. And speaking of pennants, here we go, man. What can you tell us about this place?
So this is with Ease. This is when I met Ease. I want to say through Edic. So I met Edic, and then I connected with Revo. I connected with Junior. I was into trading a lot of pictures at this point, just because I was sending stuff to magazines from Miami and getting stuff back. I had this is before the internet, so I had a bunch of pen pals, and we used to trade flicks. I started hanging out with Edic, and he introduced me to Ease. From there, I met Rage, and I mean, I was there the night, I believe, or one of the first nights we ever talked about Inkheads. It was on South Beach. We were all just hanging out, and somebody threw that name out. I want to say it was a name that either Edic or Ease had or somebody. So that was, you know, I immediately got down. I'm one of the first members for sure.
And tell us about this pennant and what was your experience here? Did you paint her regularly?
Man, I was going there for years before this, and just, again, bad luck, never ran into any other writers. So anytime I got a ride or was able to get to that area, I would go to this and the Fountain Blue pennant. So it was just an area that I knew at some point I wanted to paint, and I painted it a few times. In this case, I think it was me, Ease, Rage might have been there, Sir. I think we were just hanging out all the time at that point, and we just showed up and painted. It looks like just silvers and some scrap paint, but so it might have been just something on the fly that we did.
All right.
This is probably like 91. This was, again, I'm trying to show that Carol City was around. This was on American Senior High School. It lasted maybe the night, but I painted that a few times. I tried doing what Seam did at Jackson. That was my goal, to see if they would allow us to do something. They never did. At one point, I did the school colors were red, white, and blue. I did a red, white, and blue piece, but none of it lasted. So this one was for Zare's graduation. I don't know if he was graduating from high school or from the military, but it was for one of those two.
No doubt. And I see the rest in peace Scott LaRock. So
yeah,
obviously, like you mentioned, BDP, hip hop, New York hip hop had a big influence on you.
Oh yeah, man, big time.
Yeah.
If I wasn't racking paint, I was racking, like, again, since my racking career started long before I was really writing, I was racking music, kind of every and anything that was out there that was rackable, I was racking.
And for those of you that don't know, racking is when you go ahead and take something that doesn't actually belong to you.
Yeah,
anyway.
Don't condone
it. All right, you're rocking with ABOMB, keeping it fresh. So here we got another outline. We get to look at, you know, your before process, your after process.
Yeah,
so the product. Go ahead.
I don't have much. I have, like I said, old stuff that I did, but this is one of the relics that that I do still have. And I used to draw really big for some reason, because all of my outlines are taped to pieces of paper, but I have some colors I was thinking. I think I have some fuck offs that I wanted to do then. At that point, I have a few pieces that have fuck offs instead of shout outs, because people were, excuse my language.
Can you hear?
No, I can hear.
Okay, I hear you now. I lost you
okay.
for about everything you said looking at this picture. So would you mind just sharing again?
Yeah, so that outline is again just on the fly. I used to draw really big, so you can see there's two pieces taped together. And then I had some colors picked out there. I want to say I had some F-offs because at that point, all my pieces were getting dissed, but nobody was leaving a name, so I didn't know. So I had a little string of, instead of shout outs, where I had F-offs to who, you know, whoever. I didn't know who it was that was going over me, but somebody was. And this was in again off the rail, that same wall that me and Same did. Definitely after that first one that you showed. Me and Same did this quite a few times.
And you see that pilot marker, it takes us back to your childhood.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then obviously Timberlands were in style then, so I had my Timberland. I literally had a white sweater with a big Timberland emblem like that. So although that looks nothing like me, that was supposed to be me-ish. And then this was
Go ahead.
at the Hialeah pennant with the ink heads. I think it was me, Shy, Sir, Ease. And this was that kind of wall that was across from, there was kind of that curved track. And this was that wall. This was, at this point, you know, the pennant, nothing was lasting there. So we tried to do something across on this wall.
Nice. And so when your process from going from paper to wall, what are the things that you bring into consideration?
I mean, I still pretty much do stuff the same way, man. I'm always last minute. I'm always drawing. Sometimes I'm drawing in front of the wall as we get to the wall, even these days. Just now it's more because I don't have a lot of time. But even back then, I've always, pretty much since I was like 15, 16, I worked a full-time job. So I've always been drawing just outlines. So everything is kind of on the fly for the most part. Some stuff definitely planned better. The stuff that's more successful is definitely planned a little bit better. But for the most part, I'm always last minute kind of trying to figure stuff out. This wall that you have here is again over by the Hialeah pennant, different warehouse, but this was me and Dash. I think at that point we were racking like crazy. He was my partner in racking for sure, in all kind of racking. But this was like a scrap paint that we had from other stuff, and we were just using up our scraps. I think somewhere we had a little rhyme there that said, killing the scraps because the racks are so fat or something like that.
No doubt. And so what was your racking methodology? I think those are always, and did you ever have any fun stories of going terribly wrong?
The best story, now, I got caught one time at Builder Square, but I really don't have too many stories of getting caught. I feel like we were ultra cautious. I got caught one time in Kendall, but got away. I had on a vest and I was racking with the vest. And I had my beeper, so that we're talking before cell phones. I had my beeper in it, so I had to go back, turn myself in, snatch my vest, and then leave again. So me and Dash used to laugh a lot about that because it was like, I got caught, I escaped, I turned myself in, and then escaped again. So that's how we like to remember that story. So so that whole racking led me and Dash to. Dash was in New York and was meeting people like Kel, Mayor. He was hanging out with Wayne, and those guys were already moving into the digital realm, like heavy, like working professionally. At least Kel and Mayor, I'm pretty sure were. So Dash came back, and at that same time in Miami-Dade, I was going to Miami-Dade. I was taking art classes, traditional art, and they introduced me into a Photoshop class, and I went to go see the Photoshop class. And the guy who was showing us this new class there was going to be took a picture with a digital camera, and digital cameras still had wires, they weren't wireless. He took a picture of somebody in the audience's face and put it on an egg. And again, this is one of those times where my mind was blown. I was like, man, I can't even believe you can do that. So then that kind of, from that and talking with Dash and me and him, you know, the worlds aligning, he was getting into the computer stuff. We started racking computers. So that led us to, we were getting them at Kinko's all over the place. I think some he was selling in New York to like Kellen Mayer, and then he kept one, and we were working on learning Photoshop and learning things. So we started looking around Miami to see where we could get more computers, and we ended up in college through all of that. Like we went to go rack computers at International Fine Art College. Everything was locked down. And they were, the guy who gave us showed us around was like, you know, you can get loans to come. And at that point, my mentality was like, there's no way I'm ever paying a loan. So if these guys are willing to give me money, cool. So me and Dash literally went to school based on going there to rack, realizing everything was locked down tight. and them giving us loans. And I mean, the rest, I own a place. I'm in this office right now, literally because of that story.
Wow, that's amazing, man. So you were able to take something that was a destructive behavior or criminal style behavior
Right.
that a lot of us as youth were caught up in, and it actually was the beginning of your career as a professional artist.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's crazy. I can't tell that story to too many people, but because professionally it's probably frowned upon. But yeah, it's like literally saved my life. So racking literally benefited my life in an impossibly big way. Same thing with Dash. I'm pretty sure he'd say the same thing as far as his, like, not in graph, but as far as like his professional career where it went down. This
And,
piece wasn't a.
well, you know what's interesting about that, because it was definitely the foundation of the school I came from as well. A lot of the writers around us, that was our way of, you know, getting paint, and it did lead to other ways of even eating, or, you know, like getting our food, getting our clothes, getting our music. So it was something that kind of went beyond paint, but it was a very big part of. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Like I started racking to eat, junk food, but to eat.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah, like,
what can you tell us about this piece? And I did notice you started calling yourself a super hoe. What was up with that?
yeah. So at this point, I was working a silly shit, but I'll tell you, I was working at the mall, man, and I was doing really well with the ladies. I can't lie. I was working at several malls. I worked at Aventura. I worked like a lot of retail. I worked at Westland Mall. I worked at 163rd, and just working at the mall back then was kind of the spot. There was the store merry-go-round. That's where all the girls worked. So I was just doing really well. So I kind of took that moniker from BDP and was like, I'm the super hoe ABOMB.
ABOMB had them all.
That's right.
He is a super hoe, no doubt, no doubt.
So it was just bragging and boasting stuff, kind of, you know, that kind of stuff. This was down south. I believe this was next to a Miami Subs somewhere off US 1 when.
Yeah, so that would have been US 1 and 152nd.
Yeah.
Right,
so
right,
I think I just
south.
randomly ran into this wall and then came back like the next day and was like, there was pieces on it. And I was like, oh man, I'm not really doing too much down south, because I didn't know. I don't think I had met Rage at this time. I'm pretty sure I hadn't. So I was like, I just want to get down out there. And
Rage painted stuff there. Myself and GS had a piece there at some point. Do you remember what year this was?
92, maybe. I don't know, because it was before. I believe it was before I met Rage. Again, it's hard to remember exact timelines, but
no doubt, no doubt. And yo, for those of you that are just joining us right now, we are rocking live with ABOMB. This is Art Talks, Museum of Graffiti. You can do us a great pleasure and honor by supporting us and picking up a badge. Those badges help us continue to archive and tell the story of Miami graffiti. And yo, we are rocking with one of Miami's legends, man, ABOMB. So let's jump in and keep it going. But get a badge, man. Help us out. You know what it is. So speaking of Rage, here we got this burner here with a. Let me just get it focused. But so we got a Rage.
Yeah, that was at that Modern Age building. So this was after Hurricane Andrew, and it was me, Rage, and Sir. I don't know. I don't think there was too much on that building at that point. If I remember correctly, it was somewhat visible to the street. So we did this broad daylight, like we often did a lot of things. So.
And yeah, it was crazy. Like it's you know, Modern Age Pennant. A lot of these places were very, very public places that you could just go. And I mean, it was right off US 1.
Yeah.
And you can go and just paint. And I mean, and that's down south. Big up RICU, man. You know, representing down south squad. And that's like, you know, that neighborhood, that area, Wild Crew, Mir. So many people just killing down.
My boy Fume was from over there. Which might have been how I found out about this wall. From Fume lived really close to this back then.
Yeah. You had STV, you had Stir going in out there. It was a lot.
Bomb Crew was kind of down south crew to me. AIM was. So this was, I wanted to include this, although the piece is kind of butt ugly, is because, so there's two things I want to say. One is, and shout out to my boy Jinx. Hopefully he could be on this. I don't know if he even has IG. But he discovered Malibu Pennant. Like I said, he was kind of like a traveler. He liked to go places where nobody went. And this was the yard in Hialeah, and he lived, again, right behind that yard. And when we were doing these trains, it was more like just extra paint, more stuff to do at night when there wasn't walls to do or we weren't bombing. But it wasn't, when we were doing these I don't think it wasn't the freight movement of today. Like to me personally, it felt kind of disingenuous to do freights because it felt like we were wanting to be like New York, you know, like burners on trains. So it was really usually scrap paint. There was barely, I remember seeing Sign 5 from New York, Scent, maybe Sane on the trains, Cab, very, very little other graffiti. There was almost none back then on anything. No tags. You can see that train's completely clean. So we did that. I think that day it rained, so it's pretty drippy. But we started just hanging out like at different, there was that yard and then there was a yard in Broward. I don't know if Base put me onto it or who put me onto that, or I just saw it driving around. I used to rack, like So4 was my Broward racking partner. Dash was my Dade racking partner. When Dash wasn't available, I was with So4. So we kind of racked literally everywhere. We used to just, you know, there was no internet, no nothing. So we used to steal the yellow pages and just look for where all the hardware stores were and just drive around finding them.
Yep. So who is Rain, and tell us about your connection to that name.
So Rain is just my other moniker, just Ephraim without the EF. And I just started doing that because there were smaller letters. You know, ABOMB at one point came out in the newspaper because when they put up those signs that were, and I think Rage came in that same newspaper. They put up those 1-800 graffiti signs so that if you saw somebody doing graffiti, you could tell. And I bombed literally the day they put it up. Had to be, because I was working at Westland Mall, I want to say, and I used to drive past like where the I-75 was, and that's where one of the first signs, and I bombed it like immediately when I saw it. I just had to do it. So that ended up coming out in the newspaper, and that's why I started thinking of getting another name, so that number one, it was shorter than ABOMB, and number two, so that I kind of had something else I could write if I got caught.
Right, less heat.
Yeah.
So here's another train with Ease, Dash, and ABOMB here.
Yeah, so this was over by some trains that were parked. I don't know if they were part of a museum or what they were, but this was off of like in North Miami Beach off Biscayne, and it was parked, like there was a couple trains parked there, and I saw this, I want to say I found it and then told the guys, and we just went there and painted at night, and painted another train that was there. Dash and I started at top to bottom, but we got chased out. So there was a few trains parked there, but I never understood why they were parked there. It was weird because there was tracks, but it wasn't an area that had a lot of like train movement then. So this one, because of the look of the train, we took it a little bit more serious than the freights, where the freights, like I said, at least for me, I didn't really care so much for. This seemed a little bit more genuine train stuff.
I mean, and this is a legendary train because you have Ease, who is, now a world famous artist, as Jose Parla, and Dash, who is, Miami's hip hop, Miami's graffiti historian, and you're rocking trains with, the best of the best.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you were in really good company.
Yeah, definitely. And that was a good time. I remember just having a great time that night. We were just hanging out.
Right.
That's just a little bit more of a detail of my piece. Yeah, other angle.
So when you what's the difference for you between painting a train and painting a wall?
For me, the train is it's more fun. Like just in general, just getting away with something, right? Like I still, that's the part of graph I like. I like going out. Like when I go do a legal wall, or here you can go do Venice. Anybody can go do the Venice beach wall. It's like, that's like sort of my meditation. Like I'm doing something creative. I don't got clients telling me nothing. There's no client changes. There's nothing. So for me, it's like Zen moment. Like I really get focused. We talk, we laugh with whoever I'm hanging out with at the time. But it's really just allows me to be creative. The train stuff is just fun because you're getting away with something. You know what I mean? Like anything where you're getting away with something just feels good. And to come back the next day and see what you created under the pressure of possibly getting caught and all that, just there's something about that the only way you can know how that feels is to go out and do it. Otherwise you'll never, what I'm saying probably sounds silly if you're not part of the culture. No doubt.
And what do you think, what for you is the biggest difference? Like what is your view on the legal graffiti and legal street art movement versus, the school that you and I come from and so many other Miami writers in this?
I feel like now it's so easy to to write. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I go to Venice or a wall that's highly visible and I meet people, like everybody's starting writing at 20 something years old. And I'm like, man, I had retired several times. By the time I was 20, like I literally permanently retired for a while there because I was like, I got to get my life together. So it's different in that way. And I think the acceptance is a huge thing. Like, I mean, you know, from prior to our generation, we started this gigantic, and I didn't start this. I'm second, third, fourth, fifth generation, I don't know. But like this art movement has literally expanded throughout the whole world, throughout music, throughout fashion, design, what I do, motion graphics. Like, it's just incredible that something, to me, something started by kids is fine art, it's design. Like, it's just like, I don't know why there's not more people mainstream talking about how fucking amazing this art movement is that was created by a bunch of kids, you know, ghetto kids, some kids not even from the ghetto, but like literally children created this the biggest art movement, as far as I know, that it's ever been. Is like crazy that we don't talk about it more, that, you know, in the mainstream.
Yeah, hip hop and hip hop culture in general.
In
has,
general,
you know,
in general,
created
yeah.
work for so many people that may not have had a job.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, 100. I mean, it literally. I don't know what I would be doing if it wasn't for that scenario I told you about, racking. Like, I don't know where my life at that point in Carol City. Everybody was selling drugs, trying to be a gangster, on drugs, smoking crack. Like, you know, this literally gave me everything I have as far as a career. Like, it's probably next to my daughter family, it's one of the most important things in my life was to be part of hip hop, part of graffiti, part of all of this. It's like it's mind-boggling that something that was so frowned upon, even by my own family, neighborhood people. I was that kid in my neighborhood that my parents didn't, or other parents didn't let their kids come out to hang out with me if I was outside because, you know, of all the delinquent shit I was doing. But, you know, to come around full circle and be able to be successful and see Ease killing it. Dash, I think, just had a show in Dubai yesterday. I mean, I stopped writing for a long time because I could never have imagined any of that to be possible. You know what I mean? So that's what kind of got me more into the digital world. Like when I got into the racking computers and all that, I was like, man, I really can't help my family doing graffiti, but this kind of took over that passion that I had for graffiti for a long time. I still wrote and doodled and stuff. Graffiti really was always around me, but I definitely put all my time and effort into doing what I do now.
And this actually, like this piece right here, definitely looks like a production style that we see from one particular crew. What crew put this piece out?
So this was kind of our little HRT reunion. So that's Zaire is my boy. He was, I want to say I started the crew with him. He was more of a bomber. And at first I even started out as a bomber, bombing with like Soul 4, even prior to that with my cousin. Like I said, I really couldn't piece at that point. And Zaire is a cigar aficionado. So there's some cigar factory and somewhere in Hialeah, and he got a permission wall, and they bought all the paint, and we just met in Miami and hung out. So it was like an HRT reunion this wall. But we had some of our FC brothers were there. They let us do whatever we wanted on this wall. And then there was another wall where View and Burn FC did like the place's logo, the cigar company's logo.
It definitely has that FC flavor to it.
Yeah. This was a train. I want to say this might be my first train back in a long time. And this was Mouse. So I got to say, it has to be up there with one of the most prolific train riders right now, at least. And that was, I want to say maybe Same connected me with him. And then I went out with him. He doesn't live here in LA, but he was around, and we went and did this piece in somewhere here in LA.
Dope.
And Rec was also there.
Okay.
This was me and Lady were on this train, and View and Teal were on another train. And we actually got chased, and I got to give Lady credit. She's a gangster, man. Like, Lady's the real deal. She went back and finished this piece, and this yard is like in the ghetto, man. I'm talking about like there's some crackhead stuff going on out there, and Lady's from Carol City too, so which is even more dope. But she went out, like we were almost done, but I want to say finished my outline and did those highlights for me. So she had to get the pictures close up, and she went solo to an area she shouldn't have gone, put it that way. Like, it's crazy out there, but ladies, she's the real deal. She does it all.
Those pieces are really nice, man.
Yeah.
Really nice. Really nice.
So that's a good story. We got chased that day, but ladies' camera and ladder got taken by what I thought was the rail cops. You know, at this point, I'm not that savvy as to who's a rail cop and who's a worker, but it turns out it was the workers. So I went back. This is a benefit of being older and having gray hair. And I went back and told them I was documenting everything and that the phone they took was mine. And I was like, yo, that has pictures of my daughter. You can't have that. Like, I need it back, or we're going to, you know, something has to happen. And so they gave me back her phone, and then they just let me, it was in the back of a truck, and I just started taking everything out. So we got all our stuff back, which was dope.
Word. And I just wanted to touch on something that you mentioned. You talked about, like, the family wasn't very supportive. The neighbors weren't supportive. What was that like, going against the grain as an artist of what your family wanted and, being the bad boy on the block?
You know, in a way, for my family, like, there was no way around that I was doing graph, right? Like, we had like kind of a covered porch or garage, and like I had crates and crates and crates of paint there. We had like a little metal backyard house, and I had tags on there, so they knew what was going on. So I think in a way they supported it, just not the illegal nature of it, but but they did support the art side of it, so that was cool. But neighbors and everybody else, like my street, we had a football field marked, but we also had it all bombed, like me, cousins. It was mostly me and my cousin, and then just the other few neighborhood kids that I hung out with. So, years later when they see me, they're like, some of my neighbors are like, oh, I always knew you would do something with your life. And I'm like, no way. There's no way you believed I'd do anything like that. And including some family, cousins and aunts and stuff like that. Just started.
And so you rock this one with Teal.
Yeah, that was here in LA. Again, I was ill prepared for that, but I feel like it still turned out okay. It was a fun day with Teal. This was a wall in downtown. This one was permission. This was with Technique. Lady was on this. Teal, Rec, few others. If I'm forgetting anybody's name, I apologize. But this was fun. This was, I feel like I had done another, right after I painted that train with Mouse, I went back like the next week or the week after by myself and painted a train and did a rain piece. So that got me, I started doodling, doing rain pieces. So I wanted to do a rain on this wall.
And in terms of like your favorite paint, from the early days of Krylon and Russell to now, all these cans, all these different companies, what's the paint you enjoy using most or you favor?
Right now, man, just recently, like beginning of pandemic, I used Loop for the first time, and the wall I did, this was through Lady, I think, had a connection for some Loop paint, and she brought some to a wall. That's kind of my favorite, just because I feel like, I don't rack anymore, but I feel like it's just real good quality paint, covers well, it sprays well, like, and it's, it's not as expensive as the Montana Golds and all of those.
I feel like the writers from our generation, there's like a respect about buying spray paint now. It's almost like you're giving back to the community, and a lot of it is writers running the stores or running the paint.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's 100% back to the community. And you're right. I often think of some of the places. There's one place specifically, me and Dash racked in Hialeah, where this is when the Rusto, what was the second generation of Rusto, the American Accents came out. That was, we literally, this guy got a brand new case of, or like a whole thing of American Accents, and we literally cleaned the guy out. And this was like a little old Cuban, ferreteria in Hialeah, and I still feel guilty about that. Like, the guy was trying to give us customer service while we were emptying them out.
Right. It's not Home Depot. It's
right.
Really hit in the pocket of a family.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, man.
So this is how I proposed to my wife. I just got married in September, and this was, she kept asking me to do her name, and I was like, I'll eventually do it, but my plan was always to propose to her. So that's the Venice Beach wall, and that's how there was a "Will you marry me" next to me, and she took a yes tag under that, thank God. And
what? Hold on. You got to tell us the whole story, bro. You can't just drop the ending. How did that go down?
So she was, I did like a little get up for my daughter, Avi, one time, because my boy, uh, Zaire was out here and he just wanted to paint Venice just for the novelty of it. So we went out there and I did a little something for my daughter, and we draw at home. I draw with my daughter, and I just do graffiti. So I do graffiti, sometimes characters, but I just kept doing names, and I had done a few sketches of hers, and she's like, when are you going to do it on a wall? So my thought was eventually to propose to her and do it on this wall. So this was in Venice.
No doubt.
I see Metaphor out there. What's up, Metaphor?
Metaphor in the building, 7 Up crew represent.
This was, again, just sometimes I fiend for it, and I just went out there by myself with some paint, bought some, oops paint, painted. This is, again, Venice Beach wall. Nothing lasts there, but it's just fun to do for the picture. And, in the summer, it's nice out there. Everybody's out. It's a nice little place to just hang out.
Okay, so that's a place I've never been. How big is the wall, and how, it's absolutely legal to paint there? Right?
Yeah, 100%. You used to have to like talk to somebody at like some police thing, and then they would write your name in some book, but I feel like everybody was ignoring that. And it only used to be Saturdays and Sunday when I first moved here, but anybody can go there and anybody can paint at any time. So there's a lot of whack stuff that goes up there. Not whack, I feel mean saying that, just people that are starting out and trying stuff. There's some people that are pretty old starting out, but you can just go there and paint whatever. So all kind of stuff. I've seen stuff from some old, never run into them, but like Frame, that's an old LA legend. Like a lot of people go out there. It's just nothing lasts, no matter how dope it is. Like nothing lasts.
And how far do you live from that wall?
Not far, like
wow,
15 minutes. Yeah, I live like 15 minutes from the beach or less, depending on traffic. This is in not too far. This is also in Venice, but a different area of Venice. So this was a wall that right across from this wall, there's like a Teal and Bates and Rec and a whole bunch of other people. And then there was this other little wall. I feel like the alleys is kind of a thing here. Like once you get, some of these face the street, this one does on the opposite, like behind, but it's pretty far into an alley, but you can see it from the street. But like there's a lot of graffiti alleys back here. Not so much on the west side where I live, but like in the rougher neighborhoods, like it's like an art gallery. If you drive through certain alleys, there's just stuff all over the place. And it's because there's a lot of these big concrete walls where it's easy to do that.
And how does Miami graffiti differ from LA graffiti?
I feel like you can kind of sense that gang influence here on a lot of the stuff. It's different, but it's tied in. There's a style here that's kind of wispy that I feel like a lot of people do. So I feel like in some ways, it's just different. I don't know. Like there's definitely some people like Risk and Frame and, a lot of the guys we remember. There's that school of writer, and there's like that I feel like was definitely influenced from like New York more than others. And you can see that style has sort of continued and evolved. And then there's this more squiggly LA stuff that has also sort of evolved into some crazy pieces. But it's cool. It's different vibe than Miami. But it's a cool scene. There's definitely a lot of crazy artists here that doing some great work.
And for those of you that just joining us right now, we got ABOMB, Miami legend, now living in LA. You can support us by purchasing a badge. It's greatly appreciated. And let's talk a little bit about how, what you're doing in LA now and how you transition from being a graffiti writer to, the new work you're doing. Tell the people about that, please.
Yeah, so that goes back to that, this was that loop paint that I was talking about. This is the first piece I did with some of the crew. So that was the racking thing I told you about. So racking computers, showing up to a school to try to, scope it to see if we could rack computers, turned into going to that school. It was me, Dash, Nemo went there. We met him at school. I want to say through him we met Blur. And there was a few other writers there, but mainly me and Dash literally went there to rack and got into school. And then that sort of took all my energy. So from that, when I first started in school, when I first started in computers, period, I was thinking I wanted to do like ads like Source Magazine and do magazines and things like that. So that was my trajectory. And then once I was in school, I started to learn motion graphics really early on in the motion graphics day. like it was just starting to become something people did. So at least on a desktop. So that's how I jumped into that. And like I said, I put all the energy I was putting into graffiti into getting computers, monitors, software, and just focused on doing that. And part of that was at one point I went to New York, and this is how I got down with FC, which this is a FC production we just recently did like a few months ago in September. This was for Labor Day. How I got down on FC is Dash moved to New York, and you know, I saw him hanging out with FC crew, TC5. He was hanging out a lot with Wayne, and like he met Mayor and Kel, and I was like, man, I gotta like get out there too. It's always been the Mecca, right? So I was like, my plan was, and this was like 92, 93, my plan was to go out there, save some money, move out there, and then just destroy and, you know, do what I could and get as much fame as I could out there. So so I went out there. I stayed with Say FC. I met Say in Miami. I stayed a little bit with Psycho. He was nice enough to, like, he treated me like family. It's like one of the first times in my life where a complete stranger was like, treated me like fucking family. So I'm forever grateful for him. It was kind of a learning thing for me. But I got down with FC. But while I was there, so my plan was to stay there. My mom got kicked out of her house and my stepdad. And so I had to come back to Miami, get the job that I had, use that money I had saved to help my mom get a place. So that kind of was one of those things that also got me into this digital stuff. I was like, man, I can't keep living my life the way I was then, because it just wasn't, you know, I wasn't able to benefit my mom, help my family. And at that point, it was just me, my mom, my grandma, my brother. So from about the age of 10, I was the man of the house. My dad left, my grandfather died. So that even though I wasn't really giving too much to the household, that burden was mine to kind of help my family. So that's what sort of got me into this digital stuff. So I kind of, like I said, I was always talking graph with Dash because we were always together, but I was just like, you know, I got to focus 100% on something that can make me money, because I could never had foreseen that Ease would be where he is now, Dash would be he is, you know, Doze, the list goes on of all these people actually making a living off this stuff.
And so speaking of making money and making a living, we have we have some of your reels here that we're going to take a look at, and just go ahead and tell us like what exactly you do and what is this process here that we're looking at.
So I have a company, it's called King and Country, and we do everything from commercials to promos. We do graphics for like sports, like we did March Madness a few years ago. I don't know if they're still using the package we did, but we do just about anything that's graphic content. So sometimes it's for ad agencies, sometimes it's directly to clients. We shoot, so live action shoot, we do graphics. It started out just me and my two partners, and I was very hands-on doing 3D, 2D designing. Now I'm more in just overseeing creative, because there's so many jobs happening at the same time. So all of this work isn't just my hand. It's like we have a crew now, and it's part of the company, and I have my business partners, and we all, you know, create all of this cool work. And I just recently won an Emmy that I'm really proud of. It's up there on the shelf. You can see it.
Yeah. Enough respect.
I don't know if I'm the first graph writer, but I got to be one of the very few, if there is any. So that was for Good Lord Bird, was a show on Showtime, and we did the opening title, was just like the opening credits. If you think like Seven and stuff like that, that kind of is a more famous opening credit. So that's what we do. We do video game stuff. This is when the stuff that just passed, if you're playing any of the EA Sports, when you start up your game, that's called a boot flow. So that our graphics load up when you do that. We've done a bunch of stuff with EA.
And how did graffiti, your graffiti future your graffiti past translate into this kind of work?
I think the main thing I would say, and this I preach to my daughter and anybody who will listen, is just drive. Like I just had like when I first got into the whole computer thing, I told you about that Photoshop class at Miami-Dade. Like I took that class and I dropped out because I didn't even know what a folder was. I didn't know how to empty the trash. I played video games, a lot of video games, but I never, I didn't have a computer at home. So, but I was like, yo, this is what I want to do. Like, this is like, I got to figure this out. So that's where the racking computers came in. And it was just like drive, like never giving up. And it's dope to see where, like, at one point when I stopped doing graffiti and got into this stuff, I was like, man, seeing guys who are still writing, I was like, what are they thinking? Like, you know, this road goes nowhere, right? But now when I look back and see Ease, Dash, like all these people that are successful, like I feel like anything you persevere through and you continue to do, you will eventually make money from it. It will eventually be a career, maybe not exactly how you want it and expected. So I preach that to anybody who'll listen. And I feel like I've heard it from other successful people that you just got to persevere. Like if you believe in something, it's your passion. You'll, as crazy as it is from graffiti to being able to make a living, seeing what, like I said, Ease is doing, like who would ever imagine that in the 80s, much less even the 90s? Like would never thought that was possible. So it's kind of proof that that works. Like just continuing to do your best and pushing through all the tough times to you know, get to wherever you need to go.
Yo,
like I would have never thought there'd be a museum of graffiti. You know?
Yo, big up the Museum of Graffiti in
Yeah.
Wynwood. I mean, Miami was crazy down here this past few days. So much new work, so much inspiration. But you taking your gift and your talent and sharing it with us, you know, coming from graffiti, you know, learning how to acquire the things you needed and that
Right.
being flipped around and turned into like your whole career. I mean, that's absolutely a blessing, man. And we
Yeah,
really
yeah.
commend you.
And it's kind of come back full circle. We just did something for Art Basel for American Express. They had some kind of thing on the beach out there, and we're selling art, and had some new release of some card or something, and we did all the graphics for that. So it's kind of cool to still be able to participate in Art Basel, even though it's not any of my normal, you know, my graffiti stuff, but I'm still able to have something that's happening there. So it's pretty dope.
Well, yo, we just have a few more minutes. We are rocking with the one and only ABOMB. Somebody was asking if you have any flicks of your Lego pieces, your earliest work.
I don't. I couldn't find any. I think I did give you. There was a picture in there of like the only one thing I have filled in with design markers that was a Lego piece.
Okay, got it. And yo, so that's a wrap. We got another one. That's ABOMB. If y'all have any questions, drop them in the chat, man. Any last words for our viewers?
No, man, just I'm humbled that I even got invited to do this. Like I feel like I left a lot of graffiti energy on the table because I moved into this graphic stuff just because life got me. But I'm happy to do this, man. It's really dope. Thanks for having me.
Yo, thank you for rocking with us. Yo, pick up a badge if you're able. Thank you for rocking with us. This is the one and only ABOMB and Brimstone. Museum of Graffiti is in the building. Make sure you check out our new exhibit. It's Off the Hook. We got Sunday painting classes. If you have young people that want to learn how to write, come down to the museum for some free work. And yo, ABOMB, much love and respect. Keep it up, my brother.
Thank you, brother. Same, man. You guys are doing cool stuff. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Peace.
Take care.